Hi, I'm Dan Michasuchu. Welcome to Software Project Management Course Notes, a podcast created based on Agile Software Development online classes I deliver to Software Engineering Master Program at the Faculty of Mathematics and Computer Science from Babeș-Bolyai University.
Well, why this framework or this methodology was called extreme programming? It is the software development methodology, which was developed by Kent Beck in 1990s, and it was described as a lightweight software development methodology for small and medium-sized teams who have to develop software solutions in a context where initial specifications are vague and the requirements are frequently changed. You heard that I said that it is a software development methodology. So it's not a general agile methodology. It cannot be used in any other fields, in any other industries. It is suited only for developing software. And I think we can say that it is a project development methodology created by software developers for software developers, because it contains a lot of technical practices described there. Okay, Ken Beck is one of those 17 consultants who created the Agile Manifesto in 2001. And his first book about extreme programming, it is called Extreme Programming Explained, was launched in 1999. And it has also a second edition, which appeared in 2004. And both books are very good, even if there are many changes in the description of the practices in the second edition. I also think that the first edition is the best one. Well, why it is extreme? Why we have this extreme word there in the name of this methodology? Well, it is because extreme programming takes the most effective principles and the most effective practices to extreme levels. So if we think that, I don't know, testing, simplicity, planning are good practices, and if we think that they are important, the idea is to use them as often as possible. So if we think that code reviews are effective, we need to review the code all the time. If testing is effective, then let's implement a continuous regression testing and the continuous testing. If design is effective, we have to refactor the design on a daily basis. Again, if integration testing we consider being important or effective, we have to integrate and test our code several times a day. So we move all these practices and all these principles to the extreme. Now, here is the mentality of sufficiency. And the question, I think, is a very important question. How would you program if you had all the time in the world? Of course, that we will write a lot of tests. We will restructure the code very often, and we'll talk a lot with our teammates and with the customer. So if this is a good thing to be done, let's do it, even if we don't have all the time in the world, and to do it as often as possible. The main paradigm of extreme programming is stay aware, adapt, and change. In his book, Kent Beck makes a parallel between driving a car and developing a software solution, because he said that when you drive a car, you know the destination. You also know the road you have to follow. But anyway, there are a lot of things you cannot predict from the beginning of your trip. So you have to always stay aware and to adapt when it is necessary. Maybe it is raining, maybe it is snowing, or I don't know, an animal will jump suddenly in front of your car, or another car on the road will move in a strange way. So we have to continuously observe the context, to continuously observe the environment, and to adapt when it is needed, and to do some changes in the way we drive our car to the destination. And it is the same thing also when we move this metaphor, let's say, in the context of developing software products. So the success of projects which follow extreme programming practices is due to rapid development, immediate responsiveness to customers' changing requirements. It's because of focusing on low defects rates. We want to eliminate all defects, or the most critical defects from our software. Also, our focus is high customer satisfaction and to reduce costs. As any other agile methodology, also with extreme programming, we have a set of values, a set of principles, and a set of practices which are defined. They are just a few. There are not too many values and principles, and we have 12 practices. And also, the values and principles are very, very simple and straightforward, and they are connected each other, of course. Now, let's go together through the values first. There are five values: communication, simplicity, feedback, courage, and respect. And as you can see, they are very simple announced. Now, what each of these things mean? For instance, communication, the first thing. Of course, as you know already, communication plays a very important, a major role in the success of a project. Most of the problems with projects arise due to the lack of communication. For example, a developer may not tell someone else about a critical change in the design, and this could generate a problem. Or a developer may not ask the customer the right questions, and so critical domain decision is blown. Or a manager may not ask the developer the right question, and the project progress is misreported, or a developer may ignore something important which was suggested by the customer, and so on and so on. There are a lot of examples like this of bad communication. So XP, or extreme programming, emphasizes continuous and constant communication among the team members and managers and the customer. It's another definition of what a self-organizing team is, isn't it? So it is really connected with that principle, that 11th principle from Agile Manifesto, which describes an efficient and a productive team. Well, the next value is simplicity. And now here, many used to say that it is better to do a simple thing today and to pay a little more tomorrow to change it. So this way of thinking is the way of those teams which follow extreme programming methodology believe in. Then saying, let's do a more complicated thing today that may never be used anyway. So this is not a good thing. So let's do things as simple as possible. We have to do what is needed and asked for, but no more than that. So don't complicate things. And there is a principle which is, there is a funny acronym, DTSTTCPW. And it comes from do the simplest thing that could possibly work. This is the principle. So always do the simplest thing that could possibly work. When we implement a new capability, a new feature, we have to do it in the simplest possible way. And this is also known as a KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. According to this value, we have to refactor the code, to refactor the application or the system to be the simplest possible code with the current feature set. And this will maximize the value created for the investment made till the date, which is important. Also to take small, simple steps to our goal and to mitigate the failures only as they happen. And another principle, I think I have all these principles written in another slide, but let's try to announce all of them. So another important principle here to take into account is never implement a feature you do not need now. Just implement what is important right now and what the customer asked for. And of course, the communication value and simplicity value are connected and they support each other. For instance, the more you communicate, the clearer you can see exactly what needs to be done. Okay, so in this way, we gain more confidence about what we really need to do. On the other hand, the simpler our system is, the less we have to communicate. And this leads to a better communication. There is a very strong connection between the values. The other one is feedback, the third value. When the software is delivered, and if the software is delivered early to the customer, and at that time, feedback is taken so that necessary changes can be made if needed. And concrete feedback about the current state of the system is very, very important. Again, it's priceless, we can say. And the value of the feedback is a continuously running system that delivers information about itself in a reliable way. And in extreme programming, feedback is ensured at all levels at different time scales. We have also an image about this, and we will discuss about it. So the customers tell the developers what features they are interested in, so that developers can focus only on those features. And unit tests, on the other hand, tell the developers the status of the system. And the system and the code we wrote provides feedback on the state of development to the managers or to the stakeholders and the customers. And if we have frequent releases, this thing enable the customer to perform acceptance tests very often and to provide feedback and to developers to work based on and allow actually the developers to work based on that feedback. Well, strange feature is courage, and in extreme programming provides courage to the developers in the following way. They should focus on only what is required. So you have to have courage in order to do this and to communicate and accept feedback. It also needs a certain level of courage to tell the truth about progress and estimation and to be transparent, to refactor the code, to refactor somebody else's code, isn't it? To adapt the changes whenever they happen, and even to throw the code away if it is necessary when we develop the prototype, for instance, in our team. And this is possible as no one is working alone, and we have a coach that guides the team continuously. So extreme programming methodology is very similar with Scrum. We don't have product owner, but we have customer representative. We don't have a Scrum master, but we have a leader or somebody who plays a coach, extreme programming coach role. And also we have team members. So we almost have the same roles, and we have a plain with no hierarchy team, which is self-organizing. We also work in extreme programming in iterations, 1 week or 2 weeks iterations, and we get feedback at the end of these iterations. So there are different names, the meetings or the ceremonies are called in a different way, but it's almost the same process. Anyway, there are many more other practices which are proposed to be followed in extreme programming. Now, coming back to values, the last one is respect, and respect is a deep value, and is a value that lies below the surface of the other four values. In extreme programming, everyone respects each other as a valued team member, but this should be true in any team actually. Anyway, developers respect the expertise of the customer, and it also vice versa, the opposite. The customer respects the expertise of developers, and manager respects the right of the developers to accept the responsibility and to receive authority over their own work. And combined with communication, with simplicity, and with feedback, this respect value becomes extremely valuable. As you can see, the principles are again very well connected with the values. Many values are appear again here in this list as principles. We don't have feedback; we have rapid feedback. We don't have simplicity; we have assume simplicity. Because okay, the values are important, but they are vague. In the sense that it may not be possible to decide if something is valuable or not. For example, something that is simple for someone's point of view may be complex from someone else's point of view. And in extreme programming, the basic principles are derived from values so that the development practices can be checked against these principles. And each principle embodies the values and is more concrete, as we will see. So the first principle is rapid feedback. So rapid feedback is to get the feedback, to understand it. It is written already on the slide, and to put the learning back into the system as quickly as possible. So in extreme programming, the feedback works as a catalyst for change, and it indicates progress and gives confidence to the developers. The developers design, implement, test the system together because we have a practice which is called pair programming. So most of the time they do design, implementation, and testing together. And they use the feedback in seconds or minutes instead of days, weeks of or months. And this is these are the feedback loops which exist in extreme programming teams. So we see there here actually at the base of this circle that we have feedback in seconds using pair programming practice. Or we can have feedback in minutes from unit tests, or in hours from pair negotiation, or in days from based on a stand-up meeting, and so on and so on. And feedback on the release plan, and this feedback comes in months. So we have a lot of cycles like this, such feedback loops that we use in extreme programming too. Now, to assume simplicity is to treat every problem as if it can be solved with simplicity. Okay. Traditionally, you are told to plan for the future, to design for reuse. But there is a trap here, because if what is required today by the customer is not met, and what is ultimately delivered by may be obsolete and difficult to change in this case. So we have to focus on now, on the feature we have to develop right now, and to do it in the most simple way possible. Don't think in future to the next feature we have to develop, and to prepare our code for that the implementation, for the development of that feature. This is not a good idea, because we will add too much complexity now in our code, which it might be proved that it is not necessary. So do a good job of solving today's job, and trust your ability to add complexity in the future where you need it. Don't add that complexity today. We have to do a good job focusing on what is important today. This is the core of this principle. And as you can see here, there are those principles, those things I already mentioned. Do the simplest thing that could possibly work, and KISS approach or KISS principle, or you aren't going to need it. But there is another one which is called dry principle. Don't repeat yourself. For example, it is considered being a bad thing to have multiple copies of identical or very, very similar code. And we should not have redundant copies of information. Also, we should not waste time and resources on what may not be necessary. So this is the dry approach. The third principle, incremental change, any problem is solved with a series of the smallest change that makes a difference. So we have to do it step by step. We can apply this incremental change in many ways. For instance, the design changes a little at a time, the plan changes a little at a time, the team changes a little at a time, and even the adoption of extreme programming methodology must be taken in little steps. Now, here we can see a difference between extreme programming and Scrum, isn't it? Because in Scrum, it is said that we have from the very beginning, from the very first day, to use the roles which are described in Scrum, to use the tools, and to be and to do those ceremonies which are described in Scrum exactly as they are there. So we cannot implement Scrum in a team in a step-by-step manner. We have to forget about the way of working, the way we used to work previously, and to change it to this new process, to this new framework. In extreme programming, we can do these changes in little steps. The fourth principle is very similar with the second principle from Agile Manifesto, which talks about welcoming about welcome changing requirements. And now the best, yeah, again, it is on the slide. The best strategy is the one that preserves the most options while actually solving your most pressing problem. So again, try to implement change as fast as possible when it comes, and to be happy when this change appears, because your software, your product is driven by this change. Okay, so the last one is quality work. So we assume that everyone likes doing a good job, and they try to produce the quality that they are proud of. Mm? And we also assume that the team works well, enjoys the work, and this usually should happen in agile teams. They are motivated, and they feel good in producing a product of value, which brings value to the customer. As I already mentioned, Scrum and extreme programming are very aligned. They are very similar. In fact, if we observe a team implementing one of these methodologies, it might be difficult to decide whether it is a Scrum team or an extreme programming team. And the differences are often quite subtle, but they are important. I think there are four main differences between Scrum and extreme programming. The first one is that Scrum teams typically work in iterations called sprints that are from 2 weeks to 1 month long. And extreme programming teams typically work in iterations that are 1 or 2 weeks long. So the iterations in extreme programming teams are small. More important difference is that Scrum teams do not allow changes into their sprints. Once the sprint planning meeting is completed and a commitment was made to delivering a set of user stories, that set of stories remains unchanged through the end of the sprint. But extreme programming teams are much more open to change within their iteration. So they consider that if a customer asks them to change the iteration backlog, they have to do it because this is very important for the customer. This brings more value for the customer, so we have to do that change. Now, how we can do it? That's as long as the team hasn't started the work on a particular feature, on a particular user story, a new feature of equivalent size can be swapped into the iteration backlog in exchange for the unstarted feature. So if we have some features which are not developed yet, we didn't start the development of those features, we can switch them, okay, with the new feature, which was defined by the customer. But this thing is very connected with the next difference between Scrum and extreme programming, which is based on the priority, because an extreme programming team works in a strict priority order. So features or user stories to be developed are prioritized by the customer, and we know this, they are prioritized in the product backlog, and the team is required to work on them in that order, even after they move those features from product backlog to iteration backlog. And by contrast, in Scrum, the product owner prioritizes the product backlog, but the team determines the sequence in which they will be developed, in which the stories will be developed. So it is not necessary to follow those priorities because they committed at the beginning of the sprint that they will develop everything. So it should not matter in which order they will start the development. Anyway, in extreme programming team, it matters. Why? Because if we start with the most important feature, those features which are not so important will be developed later. And if the customer will come and will ask for a change in the iteration backlog, we can do the change with those features which are not so important. So we can swap those features, and we will replace a feature which is not critical, which doesn't have a high priority, with a new feature. What we try to do here actually is to increase as much as possible the value we will deliver to the customer at the end of the iteration. And the last let's say, important difference between Scrum and extreme programming is the fact that Scrum doesn't prescribe any engineering practices, but extreme programming does. There are a lot of good extreme programming engineering practices like test-driven development, like focus on automated testing, like pair programming, like simple design or refactoring, and so on. But of course, that it is very difficult to say to a team that you are self-organizing, we trust you, but at the same time, you must do these specific engineering practices. You must implement these specific engineering practices because this sends a mixed message to the team and it could cause confusion. So it would be much better to let the team to discover itself the practices and the value of these practices on their own. Yeah, this could be a good idea. It is difficult, but it's much better to let them embrace those changes. So based on this, Mycon, in one of his books, said that it is better to start with Scrum as a methodology and then invent our own version of extreme programming. So to discover those practices that come from extreme programming and implement them one by one in a Scrum framework, yes, using or following the Scrum framework. Here, the leader or the coach or the Scrum Master, whatever you want to call it, can help the team to do this by asking questions like, look, would this bug have happened if we'd been doing test-driven development? Or would we have made that mistake if we were working in pairs? And let them discover those practices and start to implement them, start to try them, and if they like them, they will use them for the rest of the project lifecycle.
Thanks for listening to Software Project Management Course Notes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating or a review.